The Testament of Anne Lee is a film directed by Mona Fastvold. She is a Norwegian actress and director. She's also the partner of Brady Corbet. I did not know this, so I didn't watch the movie knowing that, but I knew that Brady Corbet produced this film. He also co-writes it, so it's kind of a joint thing. She also co-wrote The Brutalist, which won some Oscars. So I did not know any of this, though. So I simply saw a trailer for The Testament of Anne Lee, and the movie kind of tricks you with a really cool trailer. I did not like that sort of marketing sort of trick. They basically take the best song from the soundtrack and loop it twice to make it look like it's going to be this sort of searing, raw, New World exploration, egalitarian sort of film. It doesn't really say that it's a musical. So I did a little digging and I found out it was a musical. I still wanted to watch the film because I thought it would be like a hypnotic sort of like a movie like Climax, basically, but with Amanda Seyfried as Anne Lee. And instead, what we get is a really boring film. The main reason is because the entire film is narrated by Sister Mary, played by Thomasin McKenzie, and it really undercuts most of the film. Whenever something happens, sometimes they go silent and they just cut to voiceover, or they just have the voiceover tell you what's happening. It really breaks the rule of show, don't tell, because instead of showing Anne Lee having like a rough time in prison, they'll just say, oh, she was in prison for 6 months, and then cut back to her being released. They don't even show the prison. And I'm like, they do it for the whole movie, so it's a full 2 hours and like 20 minutes. And I like the dance sequences. The dance and musical sequences are unparalleled. They're very like hypnotic, but they're very few and far in between. It's the rest of the movie that's not up to snuff. I know the acting and performances is fine, but we're only getting like a Cliff Notes version. So in terms of story, Amanda Seyfried plays Anne Lee. She basically is a religious person who decides to create her own sort of sect of the shaking Quakers, the Shakers, because they do dance and they do music and they're considered weird, and she wants to start her section of religion by doing celibacy. So she wants to try this new thing. However, she's vilified by where she lives in Manchester, so she wants to go to the New World. So after the first act of just sort of introducing her and her family and her followers, they decide to get a patron to go to the New World in America, to New York, where they'll start their own little thing. The movie gets more interesting at this point because we're sort of seeing all the woodworking skills of her movement and like the hard winters they have, and you kind of getting like the whole movie feels like a montage with the occasional musical sequence, so you really don't get to sit down and slow down and have that emotion because it just keeps kind of moving things forward a little bit too quickly. And we get some conflict with other followers, like her husband who can't handle the celibacy, and then later on as they try to expand, her brother gets a bigger role because he starts being like a sort of traveling prophet, trying to bring in other sects and stuff like that, like little chapters of the movement, and we get some conflict here and there, but it just feels kind of like all piecemeal, and I didn't like that. It definitely doesn't focus on anything too quickly. There's too much ground to cover, and they're trying to do it all within 2 hours and 20 minutes, and overall the movie just doesn't have the same intensity as the trailer, obviously, and that song is used a couple times in this film, but that's probably the best part of the movie, is the sort of intense sort of worship praise sequences. The rest of it's not really pushed up or dialed up. I didn't get the fanaticism enough. They should have played up the sort of cultish nature of her religious movement. They really didn't do that, so it doesn't feel that interesting when they try to stop her or they try to get in her way. So overall, the Testament of Anne Lee is a pretty interesting sort of thing, but the trailers promise an egalitarian sort of brutal adventure movie, and instead you get this sort of quick biopic, Cliff Notes, mostly voiceover movie, which kind of cuts a lot of the emotion out of the way and the story. So I give The Testament of Anne Lee a 5 out of 10.